Four parents, 9 kids, 2 houses. Didn't really wanna talk about this. Four parents, 9 kids, I'm queer. One thing's clear, there's no dysfunction here. Four parents, 9 kids, 2 houses. Didn't really wanna talk about this. Four parents, 9 kids, I'm queer. One thing's clear, there's no dysfunction here.
Dave, hand me a beer.
Yay! Hey guys, happy Wednesday.
Hello, take 2.
No, first time today for sure. We've never had to record more than once.
As we figure out this podcast, we're figuring out that recording is harder than we thought.
That's true.
Gosh, why is it so hard?
It's all right. As I said earlier tonight, it just lubes us up.
Let's pop a bottle.
Pop a bottle.
Oh!
Oh, shit.
Go. So we are celebrating this podcast because our oldest just turned 21.
Oh,
this
yeah.
past Friday.
Happy birthday,
We went to Vegas.
Jen.
By the way, that was such a fun trip
Oh
with
my
you
gosh,
guys.
I learned
had such a good time.
so much about our child and us as co-parents.
And now we have forever pictures of AJ with the Chippendales dancers.
They still text me.
I kind of feel like we should not drink on the next one because everybody thinks that we're a bunch of
alcoholics.
lushes.
It's so true. Especially
Well,
when we just
true.
got back from Vegas. We're like, yeah, let's have a bottle
Or
of
another
champagne.
drink.
You know
Yeah.
what though? I
3 weeks on, 1 week
feel
off.
Not a
For
bad
a
idea.
21 birthday celebration, I don't feel like we really partied that hard.
No, because
No, I
our
didn't.
21-year-old is super reasonable. Like,
Yeah.
He's freaking awesome.
He had
like,
to curb us. He's like, I think it might be bedtime. We're like, is it though?
Man,
Like I've had 3 shots today. We're done.
cutting us all off. But we had a great time. We went to a Sphere show. We
Ooh, that
saw
was fun.
Chris Angel, which was
Yeah.
very cool. Chandler and Jake did drag go-kart racing, not drag queen.
Yeah, I was like, where's this going?
I was like, we did?
What
drag
night did I
brunch
miss?
is next Sunday, and drag racing.
Yeah,
was
I made
last
sure
Friday.
that everyone who had a cold was well taken care of with their tissues.
Oh my gosh. So there was a moment we went to Nacho Daddy, amazing restaurant off of Fremont, and
Yummy.
It
you'll
is
get
good.
to know AJ a little bit more throughout this podcast. But Jake wound up buying him a size small tank top.
Mm, it was too
Altered.
big,
Extra
to be
small, wasn't
honest.
it?
Yeah, like I had a little bit. You could only see 2 of my
If
rolls.
the shoulder blades aren't showing, my dick ain't a growing. That's what Jake said.
It was a racerback tank. It was so great.
I will say AJ has some
He wore it like a champ.
amazing shoulder blades.
Thank you.
Later that night, he wound up with a box of Kleenex.
That he
Yeah.
stole from the Wynn.
Yes.
He went behind the counter at the Wynn, was answering phone calls, stole a box of tissues.
I
It
read
was freaking hilarious.
This-
It all seemed like a very good idea at the time.
Yeah, well, I read this story. I think it might be nonfiction about a guy named Robin Hood, and he just would go and steal stuff from people and give it to the people in need. And I felt inspired.
Honey, you're a hero.
Thank
So
you.
let me preface this.
like it.
Okay, so we were walking around and we wanted to go to the Marshmallow Show.
Oh,
Marshmallow,
yeah.
we love you.
Oh yeah, that's right.
However, Toby and I had open-toed shoes, and Jake was wearing shorts. AJ and Chan were appropriately dressed.
Like always.
Yeah, and we tried to get tickets, and we couldn't go in.
Yeah.
They didn't like our open-toed shoes and
No,
shorts.
so Marshmallow,
Unfair.
we really wanted to be a part of your life that night, but yeah, there was a dress code restriction, so AJ decided to find behind the desk a box of not moist towelettes, regular tissues,
Yeah.
and proceeded to go up and down Fremont Street providing. And it was amazing how many people would take the tissue and they were blotting their faces because it was so hot. It's July in
And there were-
Nevada.
He put so many tissues on unsuspecting shoulders. People were just walking around with tissues on their backs and shoulders and had no idea. It was so
I've
funny.
always said you
Also-
never know when you're going to need a tissue.
I never thought I'd hear Tiff say moist, just so
It's
Oh,
like
yeah, that's- you said
Why is
moist
it
towelette.
toilet? As long as it's not regarding a lady bit, that's moist.
What about a man bit? Moist balls?
No.
Towelettes
If
would
it's a
help.
moist towelette or a moist cupcake or a moist
Doesn't do too well for me.
cake, like, I'm
Jake does
a
not like.
retired romance author, so moist lady bits and man bits just does not suit well with me. But I will say, what was the name of the pizza place that I got that gluten-free pizza?
Ooh, evil
Pie. It's like
So
Evil
good.
Knievel themed.
Yeah.
It was like a Sicilian style pizza, and it was gluten free. And because I'm gluten intolerant, like holy hell's bells!
Mhm.
And as we were walking the strip, the Chippendales wanted a slice. Like
Yeah.
these cute girls.
We
wanted a
gave the
slice.
Chippendales guys a slice of Tiff's gluten-free pizza.
They should have tipped you.
I
for
know, but
that.
it was so good. I want more of that pizza. It was so delish.
I think moist towelettes actually would have been better to hand out on Fremont than tissues. They could have
It
been
was
in more
hot.
use for
It
people.
was.
Individually wrapped might have helped out. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, that's true.
definitely.
Except
don't-
when you switched to toothpicks, it wasn't going so well.
That's so
and those
true.
were individually wrapped.
And those, I mean, everyone I saw needed those. So it's just so.
You're like, you got something in your
Unfortunate,
tooth there. You want a toothpick?
Yeah.
And they were like,
No, they're like, no, I'm good. And I'm like, but you're not. And they didn't care.
Yeah, Vegas AJ is a different kind of AJ, and I love it.
You guys are nice.
Yeah, I had
Thanks.
random people coming up to me, like tapping me on the shoulder. What's going on? Why is he doing that? You know, people
was
were very
abused as a
like
child.
very needed to know what was going on.
Well,
and I love how
especially-
you explained it. Very,
Yeah.
I just tried to be as honest as humanly possible,
That was
and
my
they didn't
favorite
know what to
part,
do with
too.
that either. I
They're
was
like,
just
not
like,
good.
he's just kind of weird. He thinks it's really funny, and he's kind of drunk, and he's
They
just
were-
enjoying
They
himself.
were more
Yeah.
more
they're
unsettled
like-
after the explanation
Yeah.
than before. They're like, do you have anything
Okay.
else? Like, is he mentally ill? Yeah, let's go with that.
yeah.
But towards the end of the tissue box, a blue line started appearing in each sheet of the tissue. So they're
okay.
like, "Oh my god, don't take
It's
that
laced.
tissue! It's all laced."
And they were. I mean, they were laced, but not by the blue line.
I didn't know that tissues did that,
Me
like the
neither.
end of a receipt
Yeah.
roll.
Yeah, right. It's the same
Well, there's a
same
box
idea.
of tissues here. How important are they?
Let's find
Not
we'll find out.
important.
We'll find out
I
soon
stole them
enough.
from a
Let's
hotel
see
room.
if
Yeah.
Soft Tone has it
Put
figured
one on
out.
I always
Jake's
take the
shoulder
tissues.
right now. You might need it later.
Very good.
Thank you.
It's an act of charity. He's a philanthropist.
Yep, that's right.
Oh,
Hold me
shit.
accountable.
It was an amazing experience, and our 21-year-old is such a good boy.
He's awesome.
Happy birthday, Chandler.
Happy birthday. I
Chan.
You're
love that
amazing.
guy.
You're a rock star.
He is.
And I personally, for Chan, like, he is our first that I saw because I'm the latecomer to the group. Like, I met him as a teenager, and now he's a grown up. And it's just so incredible to, like, watch him be that kid that was argumentative and didn't get what we were saying. And now he wants to, like, I'll call him and be like, hey, Dad and I are going to watch a show tonight and get to hang out. You want to come over? And he's like, hell yeah. Like, I love that about him.
Yeah.
Like, when he moved out, I was so sad. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to hear you. I'm not going to see you. And I love that he wants to spend that quality time with us. It makes me feel so happy.
I can't imagine a better oldest son, a better oldest brother. He is such an incredible example without even trying to be an example. He just is himself. Unapologetically, he is himself. He teaches us so much. He stands in his truth and his wisdom and with such kindness.
Yeah.
He's so kind and so wise. And I'm sure he hates it when we talk about him. But man, I'm so grateful for the human that he is. He's awesome.
Speaking of awesome, Chan is awesome. And so are all of our kids. It kind of leads into what I was hoping we'd talk about today, which is the idea of parenting and children and parenting and that relationship and how it works and how it's worked for ever and ever societally because of how we learn things from our parents and then pass it down to our kids and then they pass it down to their kids and so on and how we're really, I feel like as a group, trying to break the cycle of I'm the parent, so what I say goes, and you're the child, so what you say can wait, and coming together to not necessarily be equals, because when you're talking about parenting and children, it's not an equal relationship. It just is a relationship that it is, but equals in voice, equals humans, equals in the ability to express yourself and to say your piece and to give your thoughts on something. And so, what do you guys think about that?
One thing just popped up into my mind of the kid table and how I did not like it when I was a kid.
True.
Like
It
just getting
sucked.
assigned to the kid table. And when you think about the kid table, I mean, what is the purpose?
Right.
The purpose is for the kid bullshit to not be at the adult table,
Right.
and so that the adults can enjoy themselves and have conversation and have fun hopefully without interruptions. Maybe we should not like ourselves for having a kid table. Maybe we should change that.
I like that. Yeah.
I mean, we're all humans here. We all have a voice here. We're all learning. We're all on the same journey. We're just, some of us been doing it longer.
And isn't it crazy how something like that, without spoken words around, like we're talking about it now, but like you growing up, all of us growing up as kids, sitting at the kids table, or our kids having a kids table, there's an unspoken energy around it that just tells everybody we're more important over here, you're less important over here. And just you having that thought and acknowledging it completely changes my perspective and viewpoint about it. Like, I don't know that I would have, even though we're trying to do the very same thing in our interactions with our kids and our relationships with our children. Like, if I went to a Thanksgiving dinner this year and someone was like, that's the kids' table, this is the adults' table, I don't know that I would have made that connection, And so something like that, like, just spurs me to think of what else is there in my life that just is, when it comes to relationships with parents and kids, that maybe isn't the best idea. Like, why don't we all just sit together,
It's like Toby was saying last week or the week before about traditions being peer pressure from our ancestors. Is that exactly what he said?
Yeah.
That goes off into every category, little and big, including kids' tables.
True.
I'm making a promise to you all that if I ever go to a dinner that has a kids' table, I'm sitting at it and just making conversation with all those cute little kids.
would say the same thing, but it comes off creepier if I do it. So.
Like, I know for me, like, I grew up with, in my mom's side of the family, like, we were Italian. So you weren't allowed.
What are you now?
But anyway, so
I almost lost
European. Get it? Get it?
European? Is that what you said?
It's if you're Italian when you're going into the bathroom, when you're Italian when you're coming out of the bathroom, what are you in the bathroom?
That's great.
Oh,
I never heard that.
I haven't. It's a good reminder of how great that joke is.
The dads are over here cracking them up.
Sorry,
Dad
not sorry
jokes.
for interrupting.
Yeah.
Please
That
continue.
was great.
There's always room for a dad joke.
no, but it was like once you turned, I believe it was 12 or maybe it was 14, you were allowed to have vino in your glass at the Sunday dinner table.
Ooh.
And
They kept on upping it every year.
I was raised in the wrong family. Did you say 12 or 13?
I know we're
Oh, man,
Italians
that's
are bad influences and we're Catholic, but
the
whatever.
best influences.
So it was like you had my nonny's big dinner table, which we all sat around, and there wasn't a separate table because it fit all of us. But you weren't allowed to have a glass of vino unless you were a certain age. But once I believe it was 12. I'm really sorry, nonny, which was past. If you're rolling in your grave right now, I think it was 12, and my mom will surely tell me when she listens to this if I'm wrong. But it was like you had your big
Don't call her
glasses
Shirley.
of wine.
Call her Bobby.
I love you, Mom. But that was our differentiating factor. It wasn't a separate table. It was whether or not you had a glass of wine in front of you. And the grown-ups got a big glass of wine. The youngsters got a smaller glass of wine. The youngsters got zero wine.
Grape juice, motherfuckers.
But they had it sitting out for weeks.
Yeah, smart.
Although I wonder if people
Like
think I'm
Granny's
an
root beer.
alcoholic, I
Right.
can just
Like
blame it on my
Granny's root beer.
Italian heritage. Like, it's not my fault. They made me drink when I was 12. I do love my wine though, but I mean, it's the very same thing. It wasn't a separate table, but it was an aspect of what was provided to you at the table
Right.
once you hit a certain age. And like my Dad's parents were like German, Pennsylvania Dutch, and there were separate tables. So I 100% get that.
Well, I think in general, it just is something from the older generations that was kind of passed down to us, that children are seen and not heard, and that you don't talk back. Like, I remember telling my children, don't talk back to me. And in my higher self be like whispering to me, like, what the fuck are you saying right now? Don't talk back to me? That's ridiculous. Like, where's the communication? But I would still say it. I feel bad for that now. And I think that that's one aspect of our family that I really appreciate, is that we can look back, see our mistakes, and apologize for them. And I think, it doesn't make everything better. It doesn't totally heal the damage we did our kids when we were working in the programming. But I do think it's really important for all of us as parents to look and see, okay, where was I just acting in the way that I was programmed? And where can I be more true to myself and more helpful to my children by changing my ways? And I think apologizing is one of those things that's just so important. It's a skill to learn in families. And I remember, what's her name that I love? Brené Brown. She gave this entire talk about apologizing and how important the apology is. And she is the one who said, look for what you can agree with in what the person is saying that you disagree with. Try and look for what you can agree with. And I think that we have all had our struggles with our children, with each other. But one thing that our children teach us again and again, and that we have tried to instill in our kids with our own behavior, is when we mess up, we do our best to acknowledge it, apologize. And that alone lets them know, hey, I'm a human and I'm worth apologizing to and making things right with, and in general, just keeping that mindset that this is a human with valid thoughts and valid opinions and valid concerns. And maybe I don't have it all figured out. And maybe their perspective could help resolve this situation. And I don't know, I look at all of you as people who are open to that conversation with our kids. And it's not always easy. Sometimes we're in more of a mood than another time, and we're not really here for a whole ass conversation. But in general, I do think that it's important to strive for that, even though we're not perfect at it, to strive to be people who see our children as humans who matter, and they have a seat at this table. They have a voice in this family.
That reminds me of our son Thomas, 18. He's just so wise and taught me so much. And at a very, very, very young age, before he was teaching me verbally, by the things that he was saying. That wasn't redundant at all. But at a very young age, when I was maybe telling a white lie to the kids, just to, I don't even know what an example is, lying about what time it is for New Year's Eve or something like that. So anyway, who cares what the example is? He would give me these looks at the age of like 7, 8, 9, where he wouldn't always lock eyes on me. Maybe eye contact for any significant period of time isn't typical between Thomas and I. But when he would look at me, I would just be like, he's calling me. He's 7 years old and he's calling me out of my shit.
Wow.
That is supposed to be 10 times way over his head.
Right.
Like
Totally.
7, 6, 7, 8, 9. I don't remember what the ages were, but he was so young and couldn't put it all into words. But he's just like, I see what you're doing.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Thomas has those looks, man.
That's true, he does.
And so he was teaching me to be honest, basically, and treat my kids like humans rather than like, okay, just merely for convenience or to save time, I'm going to tell this white lie or whatever it may be. I apologize for not currently having an example. But he was teaching me without even saying a word. I deserve more than this. I deserve more than what you were doing right now. And I just love him so much for teaching me that. Because it was through those subtle nonverbal lessons that eventually, now I'm a preacher about, we're all preachers, we're preaching right now about like our kids are human beings. They're not just kids.
Right.
They're not just people that need to be at a separate table and so we can see them and not hear them. They are human beings that, we say and we think we believe that they are the most important thing to us in the entire world, that we would step in front of traffic for them, that we would die for them. Then why do we, shrug our shoulders at them? And why do we put them at a different table? Why do we this? Why do we that? And eventually he was able to communicate that. Thomas was able to communicate that through words. But I do believe that it was that example that helped me realize, like, okay, we need to treat our kids as human beings. Like, it doesn't matter how hard the truth is. Like, we need to tell the truth. Anything that we expect from them, like we all talk about the golden rule, but we don't talk about the golden rule when it comes to having relationships with our kids because, we look at it as a different playing level. When we're talking about the golden rule, we're talking about peers. Let's think outside the box a little bit. Those kids are humans and they're our peers too. We should be using the golden rule no matter what age anyone is.
I think what connects what both of you guys are talking about is we preach all day long. Everybody does. The world round. What is the most important thing in a relationship? Communication.
For sure.
And then when it comes to our children, we take our programming that we all have, where we had parents, the vast majority of people, I would say, our age, the millennials, whatever. What are we millennials? I think I don't know anymore.
I think I'm on the front end of a millennial.
So I think I'm like Gen XYZ.
Okay, I'm just gonna proudly bear the flag of millennial right now, and I'm not even sure if it's accurate. But we, for most of us, had family situations, parents who said things like children are to be seen, not heard, or would say things like when a child would ask why, because I said so. Yeah. We learned how to shut down communication when it comes to a parental-child relationship, and it's the number one most important thing in a relationship. And so when you can step back and open up and allow the other person in this relationship, even if you're 33 and that other person is 6, the right to communicate to you how they're feeling, what they're thinking, and that you aren't just at 33 while they're 6 waiting for your turn to talk, and you're actually seeking to understand, listening with the intent to improve upon the situation or your relationship, then everything grows exponentially. And that's, I feel like, what we've been trying to figure out and learn and do with our children, but that it comes not naturally to us because of how we were raised. And so instinctually what's happened for so long is we've said, because I said so, or don't talk back to me, or telling a white lie and not wanting to have to explain yourself so that a child understands, or whatever it is. And when we take a step back and we allow for the other person, no matter how old they are, how much we think they know, how much we think we know what's right for them, the ability to tell us how they feel and why they think what we're saying might be not accurate or whatever it might be, we open up a space for real relationship and real love and real growth.
I agree completely. And when it comes to a child having a voice, it's like, if you're saying children are to be seen and not heard, when is that transition? It's like, oh, now you're 18, now you have a voice. Well, they don't even know how to use it if they were never given a voice. And so if we can give our children a voice from the time they are literally 0 years old, then they will naturally understand that their voice matters, that their opinions matter, that we don't have to have that bridge crossed or that transition made. It's that they know that they have a voice that matters. And in our interactions with our kids, giving them a voice teaches us so much. It expands us so much. And just a short example that I'll share of that is Jonah, and on the last little road trip that we were taking, we were at a McDonald's drive-through, and AJ and I had a bit of a moment of tension regarding the order.
I was fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was annoyed that he was annoyed with me. And
I would never.
And so then we get to the gas station right after the McDonald's drive-through, and AJ is out getting gas in the car, and Jonah says to me, "Do you think it would be a good idea to get out and give him a hug?" And I literally thought he was talking about himself. I'm like, "You do what you want. I'm not doing it." And then I'm like, "Oh shit, he's talking about me." Yes, I do think that would be a good idea,
That
Jonah.
sounds good.
Thank you for that. And I did not want to give that hug in the moment. I was in my pride. I was dysregulated. But his wisdom in that moment, because he knows he has a voice with me, and that wasn't necessarily always the case. Like, he has taught us to allow him to have a voice. All of our children have taught us to allow them to have voices because they are so wise. I could give a million examples of each of our children teaching us so many lessons. And that moment of me getting out of the car to give him a hug because Jonah suggested it made all the difference in that road trip.
I think it's so important, like Toby mentioned and everyone else has mentioned, like, we are set on programming. Like, we are so used to what our parents told us. Like we've mentioned, like, you're seen, not heard. And like with our kids, it's a huge, like, growing potential for us as parents. We don't want to be who our parents were. We want to appreciate the things that we hear. Like, are our kids perfect? Absolutely not. Like, are we perfect? 1000% no. But we've never been in these situations. Every circumstance that comes our way, like, we are learning, we are growing. And if we're not communicating 100% with our kids, like, even if they do the worst of the worst, whatever it is, or they do the best of the best, like, to celebrate them, to talk to them about what could be done better. Like, we have to talk. We have to communicate, whether it's them coming into the house like a banshee or coming in with full excitement. If we're not sharing in the energy that they're feeling in that moment, or the sadness that they're feeling in that moment, like, we don't know where they're at exactly. And growing up, it's like, I don't feel like that layer of communication ever happened. And I do feel like I had a pretty great childhood growing up. Like, my mom was always there, and my communication with my mom was always there. Like, I overshared with her, but like, I want that with my kids, but I don't feel like everyone is like that with their kids. They're still in that mentality of like, well, I was programmed to be this way, and I'm going to shut my children out of that energy, and this is just what's going to happen. And these are the rules that are just going to happen, and it's not fair. It's not fair to these kids to not hear them and to not understand them, because this life they're living in is 1,000% different than the life that we've grown up in, and with social media and bullying and just a complete existence we didn't grow up with. I think we have to communicate. We have to understand them, and that's not something that we're accustomed to from what we've grown up as. And as parents, it's hard to kind of fit that mold of, okay, this is what we did as children. This is what we heard from our parents. But what are we going to do that's better? Mm-hmm. How are we going to hear our kids differently than our parents heard us? And how are we going to provide everything? And it's not the fault of our parents, I don't want to say. Like, it's a different world and it's a different circumstance. And how are we just going to be better all around and not just blame our kids for their actions because we're growing as they're growing.
Everything's learning and growth. And so from our parents to us, we should grow and learn. And from us to our children, they should grow and learn, you know?
For sure.
And it's funny because, you know, how many times have you heard your friends, other parents, whoever being like, oh, they're teenagers, they don't talk to me. You know, they don't like, they shut me out. I don't know what's going on. But we've spent the first 13 to 14 years of their lives being like, you don't get to talk. You don't get to tell us what's going on. And then we're like, why won't you talk to us? You know? And so it's all learning, and we just have to adapt and go with it and not feel bad. Like shame, we've talked about before, like you can't have shame around the things you've done wrong, the things you haven't handled well, the ways you haven't communicated, the ways you've shut down communication. You just have to be your best in every moment and recognize like, okay, I was doing my best before and my best wasn't great. And now I recognize new things. When I know better, I do better. Something we like to say a lot. And that's all that matters. As soon as you know better, you're doing better. You're trying. And I think all four of us have really tried to do that, and failed a lot along the way, but have really tried. But yeah, I agree. And I also want to say I loved that you gave an example of Jonah. Mostly because it benefited me with a hug in the end. But I loved that you gave an example of Jonah communicating and teaching us in a moment where we were struggling and not being great with each other. And it reminded me of other things. And one popped into my mind that I would love to share. It was pretty recently that we were out at our new property that I think we've talked about before. Yeah. Maybe we haven't. No, we have. So we have property that we've bought, and this dream to, you know, build up
polygamous compound.
A polygamous compound where we all have multiple spouses. Oh, not polygamous. I'm sorry. Never mind. Just a compound. I'm not opposed to it. Where we all have our homes and living together.
I do like other women who do my laundry though.
Like I could do that.
Sister wives.
I didn't know I liked it till now. But we were out there, and we were kind of
laundry helpers must be hot.
Oh, for sure.
Right,
goes without saying.
Yeah. I just assumed that, but I'm glad you're reinforcing it because now I feel more comfortable.
I need a new job.
Hey, this is about communication.
That's right. All about communication. We were out there. We're on this land, and we're trying to take a family picture. And Anthony, it was hot. We live in Arizona, so it's like 9 million degrees. He just wanted to go sit in the car till we left. And we're like, oh, we're going to do this picture. We need Anthony to come over here. So Jonah, out of the goodness of his heart, runs over there and grabs Anthony from the car that was running with air conditioning. Don't throw us in jail. And he's just sulking back. Like he didn't feel great. He just wanted to wait. He didn't want to come for this picture. And all of us are in a moment as adults, and by all of us, I mean, I'll say definitely me and Toby more as his biological parents were like, let's go, let's pick this up, you know, like probably weren't being the most patient, weren't being the most kind. I know there was a lot of energy and many voices towards him saying, you need to hurry, we're trying to take this picture. And the one lone dissenting voice was Chandler, who said, you're good, Bubs, take your time, there's no rush. And it was genuine. It wasn't to be contrary to us. It was what I felt from, and I know you mentioned Chan probably doesn't like to be talked about a lot, but I love Chan, and he taught me so much in this moment that I saw in him a genuine care for Anthony. And he taught us all third party there. He was showing us that, like, what are you guys so worried about? Where's the day going? Like, if it takes him 25 more minutes to walk over here, or if he never makes it, everyone's going to be okay, you know? And it really taught me in that moment, like, what it was is that I'm wondering what everyone else is thinking. Like, I'm responsible for this child. He needs to hurry. We need to take this picture. I don't want everybody else to wait. Don't want to inconvenience other people.
Everybody else is ready.
Right. Yeah. And what I should have been as his dad in that moment was protecting him in a way that was like, how are you feeling? How are you, like, you don't want to come over? Okay. It's not that big of a deal. Adobe's great. We can
Yeah,
put you in
some
here
of us know
somehow.
Photoshop.
Yeah, exactly. And so he really taught me in that moment, and it meant a lot to me, and it's going to stick with me forever. But I just wanted to share that.
Yeah,
I love
urgency
that.
is such a big thing, and I feel like my spiderweb brain, everything is urgent. I'm going to say this word, and I'm not sure if I can say it, like, but to separate the bigger word for it, but like what's urgent, what's important, like everything to me, because I'm so like by the seat of my pants, everything has to happen now. I need to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
Everything has to happen in a moment. And with our kids, that's how I am. Like, it doesn't have to happen right now. You don't have to put away your laundry right now. You don't have to clean up your mess right now. You don't have to express your feelings right now. Just to be understanding. Like, even though that's how I may feel, not necessarily is that the way they feel in the moment. And it's not to say that they're going to take advantage of a situation, because I don't feel like we treat our children that way. But it's like we have to compromise and then communicate, like, okay, this is how I feel right now. I feel urgency. And what are you feeling right now?
Yeah.
Is it
Give them an
not urgent?
opportunity.
Yeah,
They're like, I'm napping.
Like, well, I want to play on my PS67. Well, okay, well, that's not important right now. This isn't reality. Like, let's get back to reality. Let's compromise. And oh my gosh, it's such a huge learning lesson for me, because I'm so instinctual. I'm so impulsive. I'm so in the moment, that it's teaching me, like, okay, Tiff, take a breath. Let's talk. What is the other person doing? Even with Jake, it's just like, okay, I want this, not done. And he's like, well,
Slow down.
yeah. And he's like, okay, I don't know where your like rat brain is going right now, but this is what I've got going to my rat brain. And even with our kids, just understanding where the other wavelength is going.
I just wanted to share about it reminded me when Tiff was saying about, well, we're programmed this way and this is what we believe. When I think about my childhood and when I think about, deciding how to parent after my childhood, I feel like naturally I just want to, I think about what I liked about my childhood and the parenting there, like in my childhood, and what I didn't like. And so just naturally, and I kind of feel like everybody this way, is like, okay, I didn't like this, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to come up with a different plan for that stuff, for that 20%. And, maybe the percentage is definitely different for everybody. Or there is no percentage because you don't like math. But
That's me.
So the other 80%, I'm like, okay, I can parent that way because that was pretty badass. I liked that. This 20%, I'm like, like my parents were awesome, but I think I want to do it a little bit different that way. But what if our original wiring, how we're programmed, what we believe from the very beginning, starting with us growing up throughout our childhood, like skews that 80% that we feel is right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
absolutely.
So like naturally we're already trying to fix the things that we didn't like. But that's one person out of 7 billion that are alive at any given time, not taking into account all the people that have lived previously and the people that will live ahead of us. I mean, so many different personalities, so many different childhoods. And, I'm just going to decide, like, okay, I didn't like this 20%, so I'm going to change that. But I did like this 80%, so let's just stick with tradition, stick with this, stick with that. Like, that didn't bother me. That didn't show up on my radar. And what we need to understand is that natural programming from our childhood that made us who we are, that didn't ultimately bother us, that might be something that is in the 20% negative category for our kids.
Yes.
Like, it's not a might, like guaranteed there are things about our, things that we're like, okay, we got this dialed in because it was fine for my childhood and it's going to be fine for my kid too. That's just, that is something that
So
we
true.
need to pay attention to, reevaluate, realize that. And how else can we figure it out unless we open up that line of communication with our children to where they can try and communicate those things with us. Like, I feel, I'm doing my best here, and I feel like it's good, but if anything pops up on your radar, like, teach me, because parenting is
Hard.
like practicing medicine. You're practicing parenting.
Yes.
And it is
Yes.
hard.
Yeah.
And just that open communication. And it reminds me of our wonderful 16-year-old daughter, Annabelle. Just
Anna!
recently,
Yay,
recently, we had a negative situation that I don't think she'll mind me talking about. I mean, what the subject matter really is nobody's business. Let's just say that she, borrowed a car without checking with me first. So I came in very offended, very hurt, very, like, hey, we're both human beings here. This is a two-way street. So, what we've already been talking about on the podcast, like, I'm trying to respect you, but in this situation, I don't feel like you're trying to respect me. So what's the deal? It should be a two-way street. And she threw out the card of, I'm a 16-year-old child. So I get what you're saying about the two-way street, but in some situations, like, you've got to leave it open. You've got to understand that you're 42 and I'm 16, and we're both going to make mistakes. And sometimes they're going to hurt each other. Sometimes those mistakes are, going to hurt the other person. But anyway, so my point is, she helped teach me that when it comes to parenting and when it comes to making mistakes, absolutely, like, yeah, we're both humans and it is a two-way street, but she's allowed to make more mistakes than I am because of where she is in the journey instead of me, or as in comparison to me. I should expect more of myself than I should expect of her. Absolutely. But and I told her that, and I thanked her for helping me realize that. But then my rebuttal, that was kind of my argument back to her, was like, but in the category of communication and honesty, I do not believe that we are on any kind of different playing field. We are on the same field,
I love that. I love
so, if you're going to take a car without permission, in Dad's mind, that's the same as lying straight to my face.
For sure.
So, how would you feel if Dad chose a category to lie straight to your face? And how long would it take you to forgive me? Like, let's just play a game. And anyway, she heard me, she understood me, and she has been spilling her honest guts to me, like, ever since. Like, I just
Amazing.
absolutely love it. I love and adore you, Anna. Thank you so much for being
That's
such
awesome.
an amazing
That's great.
example to all of us.
If there's one thing Anna has taught me again and again in her communication, and she has been wise since the day she came out of my hoo-ha, like Tiff says, she teaches me again and again to just own her humanness. And when she and I have ever had a disagreement, which honestly has been so few because she's such a gorgeous soul that we can communicate really well together, but there are definitely times where we disagree. And when we do, she is so good about trying to understand where she can do better and acknowledge that openly, which has been something that's very difficult for me. It's very vulnerable. It feels unsafe for me to admit that in any way I'm flawed, because that makes me feel unsafe. And she shows me again and again that it is okay to be a human. And anytime that we have had any kind of discord between us, she is able to acknowledge, okay, this is what I could have done differently, and I want to do better next time. And that is just absolutely mind-blowing for a 16 and below human to be able to communicate in such a wise way. These children have so much to teach us.
True.
If we open to them and see them as humans, we can be each other's teachers. We can be each other's guides. And of course, we have a responsibility as their parents to be, their safety, their protectors, their guides. We don't ever want them to feel like they are in that position to have to protect us or anything like that. But to see them as equals in the sense that they are humans on their own journey, to respect that sovereignty and to really hear them and allow ourselves the opportunity to grow from the experience of allowing these humans to be human.
When
Beautiful.
they ask why, they deserve to know why.
Yeah, it's not because I said so.
And sometimes it might not be the perfect time for a
Right.
7-minute explanation. And you can say, I love and adore you, and I need you to just trust me in this moment, and we will discuss it tonight.
Mhm.
And you
You
build that trust through the open communication and
For
allowing
sure.
them to have a voice and be who they are and listening to them.
Which makes me think of the bubble, which we don't have time for on this episode, but I would like to talk about the bubble.
Ooh, let's do
The
that soon,
bubble.
for sure.
Because that
Everybody's
is
going to be on pins and needles until
Ah,
they hear
right.
what the fuck is the bubble?
I'm not going to be able
It's
to
It's
sleep
buble, it's
tonight.
French.
Buble.
Yeah.
It's a very special place.
Yeah,
It is
yeah.
what it is. But it's
We'll
all
let
about
you in.
communication. And no matter how old you are, if you're a parent or not, like, your kids deserve to have that open layer of communication. And they're not going to understand your no unless you're communicating with them as to why. And they deserve that. And their reasoning as to why they want to do something. You deserve that as the parent. Like, we all deserve everyone to spill their guts.
Yeah.
Tiff, I just want to
Spill
say
your
you're
guts.
the real MVP for
That's
being here
true.
with a cold.
Yeah, well done.
You are
I know.
You're a
wiping your
champion.
nose.
You're a
Fucking
champion.
awesome.
I
And-
love all of you guys.
I love you too.
Is that for
Yeah,
real?
I love you too.
We've been playing footsie under the table for the
I was,
last
That's
40
I was
totes
gonna
of
say,
adorbs.
not only is she a rock star in a podcast with a cold, she just hosted trivia at our restaurant for 2 hours right
Killing
before
it.
the podcast.
Girl,
with a
you're
cold.
After
amazing.
resolving technical problems for 48 hours straight.
My God.
You
It's
guys are
time
awesome.
for
This is
bed.
why I make the big bucks.
That's
y'all.
right. You
And
guys,
big bucks or cuddles with Jake when they go night night.
I will sign up for big bucks or cuddles with Jake any day of the week.
No, you cuddle with Toby. I cuddle with Jake.
Okay, we'll talk about it later.
Okay.
Thank you everybody for joining
You
us.
guys are amazing.
Love you.
Thank you.
Lots of love.
Love you long time.
4 parents, 9 kids, 2 houses. Didn't really wanna talk about this. 4 parents, 9 kids, I'm queer. One thing's clear, there's no dysfunction here. 4 parents, 9 kids, 2 houses. Didn't really wanna talk about this. 4 parents, 9 kids, I'm queer. One thing's clear, there's no dysfunction here.
Babe, hand me a